Sapoops, adalah wira negara. No, but for real though, tax deadline is coming up. If you haven't filed your taxes, time to chop, chop, chop. And while we're in Captain Obvious honeymoon mode, here's another one for you. No, you cannot mock the Sultan. Sapoops, a lot has happened ever since Wong Siew Kee's speech in the Dewan Assembly. Namely, a ton of racist comments, such as this one by Keme Akim, and also Wong Siew Kee changing her profile picture, which I am very honored to like. Congratulations on respectfully engaging however many jokers want to tunggang on royalty and what you did. Not all is well in the world though, because somebody went and made this. And I was just like, what? Now this is clearly a mockery of the Sultan of Selangor. You can clearly see how whoever made this intended to insult the Sultan, and it's just a no. Who would even think about this? Dude, I'm pretty sure Wong Siew Kee doesn't support this. There are a couple other statements here, there, and everywhere, and it looks like the police have actually identified whoever was running this page, so I guess somebody's gonna get a knock on the door at 3 AM in the morning. So yup, terbaik PDRM, terbaik MCMC, and keep up your good work. But Sapoops, there's a deeper layer to this. First of all, being that it's not about criminal enforcement or something bad will happen to you, which it probably will, but it's also, if you want to engage, then you engage respectfully. It's not that difficult to do, right? I mean, sure, people think that the whole pig farming thing is something that actually needs a solution that matches with commercial law, that actually helps to use technology for the sake of making sure that people have their rights to whatever food it is that they want to eat, and by the way, their livelihoods not compromised just because of political sensitivity. That's why we engage respectfully. But if you're just going out and then insulting a person for no good reason, I don't see what the purpose is. Like, what does that even get you? How about nothing except getting arrested? The second reason is that clearly this creates hatred between communities. This is naturally the sort of situation where people are going to assume, hey, it is a so-called type C or type K or a type Barbie or whatever it is that people want to assume who has done this horrible thing, and before you know it, you have people making assumptions all over the place even though they have no idea what kind of person actually did this. And to some degree, based on how our society is, you can't really fault them for reacting in that way. Dude, it's like how when people were flailing their arms about the couple at the Chinese cemetery, people were screaming, oh, what type C ah? But actually no, it was an Indian and a Malay couple. And how whenever there's a drunk driving case, then immediately then people start making grand declarations about the race of the people while screaming, orang Muslim kena bunuh dengan begitu kejam sekali, until at some point then it turns out that there was a drunk driver who is actually Malay. So yep, but this comes to the most shocking reason maybe, and it kind of combines with point number 2. This was actually an act of sabotage. By the way, Sapoops, you're not going to be happy about this, but you know who we have to thank for this? Firdaus Wong Wai Hong. See, he made a post sharing that this picture was actually uploaded by a fake account created with 0 followers, 0 following, 1 post, and an imitation of another page with 5,500 followers.
Thank you, Firdaus, for pointing that out.
So basically, this is an act of sabotage. Somebody hates the real Hua Yan, the Pure Land Learning Center, and decided to insult royalty in order to sabotage this business. I'm like, wow, very creative, but it's really a messed up thing to do, dude. It was low, sneaky, and action done by somebody who lacks honor. But I will say though that this whole thing has actually been unfortunately revealing. For one thing, it does show that Firdaus Wong Wai Hong's audience is actually racist. And you can tell from this whole series of exchanges between him and his beloved, totally respectful Ummah audience. All these people are now going out to try to tunggang, to so-called speak up, because allegedly they want to protect the image of the royalty, but actually they're just using royalty for their own purposes.
And given that his audience hates Chinese people so much, I wonder what he thinks as he says this.
I'm a Chinese. I cannot become Malay, and I don't want to become a Malay. I'm still a Chinese. And I will always be a Chinese.
Suppose we mentioned this in the last video already, but it is respectful to go out and engage your royalty, to take part in the democratic process. That's how democracy works. That's how it's supposed to work. It doesn't work by complaints from 2-bit loser politicians who can't do anything meaningful apart from gaslight and argue. And at this point, I mean, we actually follow what the Sultan says, and we accept Jamal Yunus's logic that you have to get out of Selangor if you don't agree with the Sultan. Then I think that a lot of people have to get out of Selangor for screaming type C, type K. We can finally stop politicians from menungganging agama when they're in the mosque, not least a certain Hadi Bawang, who just casually ignores rulings and mocks the constitution and the monarchy, all the while never showing up for parliament. I think rather than just investigating Suki, you really need to start looking into all of those jokers out there who are just casually making use of the Sultan's decree in order to advance their own personal agendas. Make Selangor great again. Whatever it is, Sapoops, I think that there should be a certain standard of decency that at the very least we should abide by. If you want to convince someone, then maybe don't go out there and try to insult them. Although I'm not sure that applies completely in this case, just purely because of the fake page thing. By the way, if the police actually manage to catch the guy, then that's gonna be great. Let's see who this idiot is, and hopefully we can get a bit of clarity along the way. I'm sure that there's going to be even more discussion, especially if the person happens to be Chinese, in which case then we then have to have a discussion about how just because the person is Chinese doesn't mean that X, Y, and Z. Kind of common sense at this point, the same way that you wouldn't say that all Malays are lazy or all Indians are drunkards. But if it's a person of a different community, then I think that's going to be pretty interesting. So I look forward to what's going to happen along the way. To the guy who went and insulted the Sultan for reasons best known to yourself, well, I hope you're ready, cause life is not going to be pretty for you. That's all I have to say about that, and bye.